folks, it's Mark here, and we are back for the 24th of July Emerging Tech Pulse, where we cover what's going on in both the Web3 and AI space. Let's start off with what's going on in Web3, and we've got Chain Reaction behind me. So as you can see here, the latest newsletter from the Oz DeFi Association. The first thing to highlight was that I did the Emerging Tech Pulse right here in this very seat. Probably not with so great coloring because I did it on my own without our guy that does a whole lot of our filming, but I did get help from him for some of the Lulu podcasts that you would have seen. So this was Emerging Tech Pulse episode number 3 here last week, where we went through this very same thing. We also did a couple of other things that we filmed, as you will see next. So one of the first ones that is behind me is the Rants and Raves podcast, and that was with James Myant. He is from Sterling and Rose, and it was great to get him out and about on one of his days off. Just joking, he was in casual gear, but never take a day off over there. They are so busy with all their AI and blockchain work. We got to rant and rave about Ripple and what that means and the meanings beyond what we just saw in the headlines, as well as what would it take for businesses to better understand where there's issues in terms of like when you don't know in the blockchain or AI space, how you can actually trust the consultant that is working with you. So we deep dived into that. Definitely a lot more room to do more ranting and raving. So see more of that in the next episodes. Another big thing, especially for my work at NotCentralised, was that we got to feature at the Tech Summit. So that's the Tech Council of Australia. They were up in Brisbane. A whole lot of people were up there. Victor Dominello, we had some friends from HSF, and it was great to see this gentleman on stage, Paul Fletcher. He's the opposition. He's in government on the opposition side, but doing a lot of stuff in the digital space. So what he was talking about there was the different use cases and innovations that are going on in the Australian space. He had mentioned NotCentralised. We spoke to him after we were announced as being part of the RBA CBDC pilot in terms of tackling with a stablecoin that is backed by CBDC, how that would pertain to construction industry and just what it would do there to help the opacity of payments and subcontractors basically losing out because they buy materials, they hire staff, they do work not knowing that the other side doesn't have funds. So he spoke about that particular use case and a whole lot more that is going on in the world of Web3. Also, as part of that, we actually got to feature in Parliament. So as you can see here, if I click on this, check it out in the article, but we got to feature in Hansard, which is the recordings of all parliamentary speakings that happened on June the 1st. And so there's links in the actual newsletter, so check that out. I've got this one behind me because it's the week of the Digital Asset Conference. So that's run by Blockchain APAC. So Steve and Rochelle, they've gathered a whole heap of very interesting and thought-provoking and great for networking kind of speakers. So that's running tomorrow is the opening and breakfast. On Wednesday, there'll be some talks as well that we'll be part of. And we're also going to be running our Oz DeFi meetup in Sydney that day. In the evening on Friday as well, I'll fly over to Perth and we're going to be running something there with Bamboo. It's over at Space Cubed. Our chapter lead, Kat Dunn, is leading the way there. We've also got a Res from Stables, one of our new sponsors, joining us there. So definitely check that out. Okay, and now it's time to cover the AI news of the week, and we do that in conjunction with the other association that we help run, which is called the Data Science and AI Association of Australia. So first up in AI news, there was the Web Directions Conference that happened late last week, and I got to participate in that one along with some other great speakers as well. Thanks to Maxine, who got us the invite for that. Also to John Alsop, who was running that event. Got to see Raymond Sun, who's also from the association, DSAI. Also Paul Cunningham that was talking about LLMs. I was on a panel talking about business strategy, and it was great to see folks like ABC News. They were represented there, as well as consultants in the space. We talked about AI ethics, a little bit about how you actually get started, and just a whole lot more. And better yet, this was a conference where the whole thing was built on top of Discord, so people could actually share and ask questions in the Discord. And not only just during the conference, the conversation has continued after. So it's great to see that spark there. There was about 100 plus people in the room, maybe more, but that was out at UTS. So really great to see a whole lot of people coming together to talk about AI and how it's used. We met some great folks like those from CSIRO and other organizations in this space. So definitely check out the newsletter for some links and details to the recaps, and you can see some photos like you see behind me here. Also in the news, we had a podcast that was put out by Paul. He was interviewing Simon Alicia, and as you can see here on Spotify, it was all about serverless and Bedrock and basically tech advocacy. So if you're into the underlying infrastructure when it comes to GPT models and what you're building in AI, definitely worth checking that one out. That is on Spotify on the DSAI podcasts over here. Another one to check out is our friend Jason. AI Jason is what he goes by on YouTube. He puts out a whole heap of great content. It's been really cool to see his channel rise up and up in terms of the viewership, and he's been putting out some really great, easy to use, easy to follow videos for building things like research agents. He's got a follow-up to that. This is Research Agent 2.0. He works over at Relevance AI, which is a great Aussie startup founded by Jackie Koh, who was also one of the founders of DSAI. So worth checking this out. Give him a follow, and also us as well. But yeah, some really great content there. We also look in the newsletter at some other news going on in the space, such as this Stanford article that was looking at the issues and degradation of the GPT model. What that was that people were writing some research that came out of Stanford that said that GPT-4 has degraded in terms of its ability to reason. It was getting more questions wrong than it had before, and so they were implying that there was a degradation in the model. But if you look at it, there are some writers out there that pointed out some interesting flaws in that original research piece. So we saw a lot of headlines about this because it's easy to just look at the headlines, look beyond. So one of the articles that we highlight is here from AI Snake Oil, great name, that is on Substack. So if you check that out, you can see the issues that were pointed out in terms of that bit of research. It's not actually a degradation, it's basically wrongdoing in terms of how the tests were done. This is a large language model. It's not necessarily there to do math. So if it was a fair fight, we'd actually see better kinds of testing happening. And there's other issues that were noted out with it as well. It just means that you need to read below the headlines when you see a lot of these like hype and, hype and bluster that is in the space. So definitely worth checking out. Finally, we wrap up these newsletters with quite a few times one of the better producers of AI content that we see in this space. It is Matt Wolf. He's got Future Tools, which is a great website which covers AI news. He's also got a whole list of tools in the space, so definitely worth looking at if you're looking for something in particular in this space. But he gives a roundup of what's happened in the news. We also feature someone else that gives their roundup as well. There is a whole talk about like what is going on in terms of content and copyright for basically those in the creative space, so like actors and musicians, and the complaints that they're having because AI is looking to take away their jobs. A bit more of a grey area to it than that, so worth checking out what these folks have highlighted on their YouTube page as well. So check that out. That's all in the news there, and that gives us another emerging tech wrap up for the week. Cheers.